Yeah, in many ways, this is both expected in the sense of this is the Taliban, as it were, showing that the stripes remain on the tiger rather than have changed. At the same time, given the at least noises it was publicly making to be more inclusive, a little bit surprising. One thing I would note is that this is the interim government, so there's definitely some politics at play here where I think there's probably a calculation of what the Taliban, as it were, can get away with vis-a-vis the international community. So, how long this interim government lasts and what type of permanent government it will give way to, I think is definitely something that many people will be paying attention to at this point.
Yeah.
The fact that, in essence, the Biden administration recognized the Taliban 2 years ago when it started the Doha negotiations, in which it purposely excluded the Ghani government of Afghanistan. So it's going to be really difficult in a practical sense for the Biden administration to walk back what was in fact the de facto recognition over the past 2 years. It was really interesting in the clip you shared of the president talking about Afghanistan's neighbors being nervous. And I think that really reflects the calculus of the Biden administration that this is no longer their problem and that they are going to hold it at arm's length. Direct that ministry would seem to indicate that that's at least in discussion. One of the things we need to remember, and that I think is well reflected in this interim government, is that the Taliban is not a unitary whole, that there are different factions within the Taliban, and that it is a precarious moment both for Afghanistan generally, but also for the Taliban itself. And so there's quite a bit of jockeying within the organization as they try to divvy up, as it were, the spoils of war. I expect that it's going to remain a dynamic situation as we move forward, with a great deal of potential for violence. By no means is this settled, and I think this is something that many observers will be watching in the coming days and weeks. Afghanistan has heard a number of reports of similar tone and tenure, which is quite disturbing, obviously. The Taliban, on the one hand, has a population which is war-weary, and that, as it were, can benefit the Taliban. But at the same time, the real challenge for the Taliban is now that they have seemingly won the war, and I say seemingly because I'm not sure that the war is over. I think their quick conquest may, in fact, end up having been rather illusory. But having won the war, I think they're going to find that governing and ruling the country is quite a different matter altogether. And the Taliban, in fact, is really poorly equipped to do that. We hear these numbers of approximately 75,000 fighters in the Taliban, but that does not give them the competence to run a state. They don't have the bureaucracy, they don't have the know-how, they don't understand how a state functions. If anything, their period in governance in 1996 to 2001 previously demonstrated their lack of ability to run a state. And so I think that's a really important thing to remember. The other thing is that there are certain conditions that any Afghan government is going to face, whether it be the previous Ghani or Karzai administrations or the present Taliban administration or whoever comes after them. The first and most important is that Afghanistan has always been reliant upon a foreign subsidy. At no point over the last century has foreign subsidy constituted less than a quarter of the Afghan national budget. In fact, the 2019 budget of the Ghani government, 60% was from foreign sources. That's just a hard reality of governing Afghanistan, and in part explains the desperation the Taliban feel to get international recognition. They need to turn on the spigot in terms of foreign support.